Hello, my name is Aloysius Maina. I'm a student of theology at the John Paul II Catholic University of Lublin, and I wanted to share an experience I had on regarding the way of the cross, but particularly on the extreme way of the cross. The extreme way of the cross is, as I understand it, a Polish tradition where young people or people of all ages take it upon themselves to pray the way of the cross, but through an overnight journey. So there are specific churches selected in a particular town that will serve as stations of the cross, and the idea is to walk from church to church throughout the whole night, and in that way to experience a little bit of what Christ experienced during the last night, you could say, before his passion. So for myself in 2024, I was invited by some friends to participate in this devotion, and I didn't quite know what I was getting into, but I was curious and I thought it could be worth trying out. So the group I was with, my friends decided to take on, I believe it was the 46-kilometer route, and that meant walking from essentially 8 p.m. Friday night throughout the night to arrive the next morning at around 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning. So we set off walking. At first, it was very nice. It was kind of comfortable because we would arrive at different churches, we would pray, and along the way we would talk amongst ourselves and my friends. It was a good way to get to know each other. But then things eventually would start to get a little bit tricky because past midnight, we were moving further and further away from the city, away from the residential areas, away from the lights, you could say, and entering more into countryside. So people's farms, entering a small group of trees, and eventually past, I would say 1 a.m., 2 a.m., we entered a forest, particularly thick forest. And once we're in that forest, we were a little bit lost because our navigator, the person who was guiding us from station to station, was not quite so sure the route to use. It was pitch black at night. Of course, we only had our phones, the torches on our phones. We couldn't really tell whether the path we were on is actually the right path. And it was at that moment when, of course, a little bit of fear is kind of creeping in your heart, that I found myself meditating on this experience that Christ must have had during that same night. So he had been arrested, he had been taken to see Caiaphas and Annas, the high priest of the Jewish people. He had had that trial where, of course, he was accused falsely, and the next morning the plan was to take him to see Pilate. So in between, there was that experience that we don't always speak about, that Christ would have been put somewhere in a prison or some makeshift jail, and he would have had to serve there for a few hours, especially from, let's say, midnight, 1 a.m. till the time of dawn, when they would have taken him to Pilate. He would have been alone, he would have been hungry, there would have been a little bit of fear there because he had an idea, he knew what was coming, but of course there was still a lot that would have been mysterious about the whole experience of the cross. So when we're in that forest, we're looking around, it's dark, and you could only see a few stars in the sky. We weren't so sure which way to use. I found my mind going back to that moment, and it ended up being a consolation because it felt as if I was experiencing what Christ felt, and it helped me feel closer to him, to identify myself with him, and it helped me also get through that moment, that time when we were obviously a little bit afraid. Eventually, after walking for a couple of hours, we found the right path outside of the forest and were able to continue the Station of the Cross. But I still remember that moment where, especially when you're in the middle of the forest, it's dark, it's quiet. There was one of the scariest moments was when we reached a certain part of the forest, but there was absolutely no animal sound, so not even crickets, because at least, to be walking somewhere in the countryside with grass, you can at least still hear crickets, but it was just total silence. You could see the stars, nature was all around you, but it felt a little bit strange. So this moment of kind of just being lost out there in nature for me was special because at least it brought me a little bit closer to our Lord. So I can see that's something that the way of the cross helps people to, something it helps us achieve. It helps us draw a little bit closer to Christ, and for that reason it remains a very beautiful devotion. So I'm thankful for that experience.
Extreme the Way of Cross is kind of an event. You go there and you sign up for it on the internet. You go to a mass, to a cathedral in Lublin, and then after the mass, you start the Extreme the Way of Cross. So this is my first aid bag. I usually have everything in here. There are some bandages, there are some insulin that you can take, but I usually don't do it. I have scissors, so I can cut through cloth or just cut the bandage off. I have something that can stabilize your hand when you break it, and yeah, most of it is just like that. I do have gloves for your own safety, and I think that's everything. It is packed, but there is just many things that repeat and repeat because you don't know what's gonna happen. Thankfully nothing happened and I didn't have to use it, but I think it's good that you have it with your like something that it's handy and you can take it everywhere, and you don't know when you're gonna have to help somebody, and if you have it right there with you, you can just help somebody, and I think that's how you should be. What is it actually? You can go three places. You can go to Wąwolnica, you can go to Lubartów, or you can just go around Lublin and go to all 14 stations. There are 3 paths to Wąwolnica. One is 50 kilometers, the other one is 46, I think, and the last one is 42. They're just one is the shortest and the other one is the longest and the most extreme. And it's not like you're going through one clear path. You go through many places. You go firstly you go through Lublin, then you go around some outskirts, and sometimes you get a lot of mud in your boots or in your pants. I mean jeans. Then you go into like those little villages around Lublin, and after those villages there is actually nothing. There is a forest, there are some fields, and you go through all of it. You go if it's there mud yeah, if there mud or forest, you go through it and you don't look at it, you just go. The theme of this year's Extreme the Way of Cross was the journey inside of you, and it told you how to reborn yourself, because we go for the Extreme the Way of Cross not to go through all of the kilometers and test our strength of our body, but to test the strength of our mind and of our spirit. And we go there to become a new person. So in all of the other day of Lent, we became the best version of ourselves, or we reborn ourselves and get to be a whole new person and be prepared for the crisis, death. And one of the things that I do remember, like one of the most things I do remember, is that there was this one station, and you had to think about what does mean being reborn. because there is the first time you are born, your mother is giving birth to you, and you are newborn and everything, and your mother goes through a lot of pain, and it's really really bad. I think if you ask your moms, they will tell you, or maybe not, for your own sake. And there was this thing, and they told us that if you want to reborn again and reborn your spirit, you have to get through a lot of pain, just like your mother when she gave birth to you. And I think this is beautiful because it is actually true. So, my name is Maya. I'm 17 years old, and I just came back from Extreme the Way of Cross. The thing that I went through wasn't all easy. I thought that, I went to a pilgrimage and to Vonvolnica, and that it's not going to be a big of a deal going through the Extreme the Way of Cross. It was completely opposite. I went there with my friend, and he was there once. I wasn't. I didn't know what I was expecting. I didn't know what I will go through. But it was a bit emotional, and I did suffer a bit physical. So first few kilometers, I think maybe like 17, they were pretty easy. We went through some cities, like villages, not cities, but we went through Lublin, some villages, and then we went through just fields. And there, when the problem starts, then the problem started, because we did lost a few times, and it was a bit emotional for me because some things were just too close for me uh, to not just burst out. And at some point I was just annoyed about everything, and I thought, my gosh, it's cold, I'm hungry, but I don't want to eat because I I just don't want to stop. I just want to go and not stop at all. I just want to get through this this hurtful feeling, this struggle, and I don't want to stop because then I thought that I'm gonna be I'm gonna be weak. And my friend did encourage me to stop and get a break, but I wasn't happy with that. And I was pretty angry that we had to stop and take a few breaths. I just wanted to go and do not stop. The thoughts that were at the beginning of the Extreme the Way of Cross was that it's not about the way that you're going through, but the feelings and thoughts that are going through your mind. So I thought that I'm not gonna look at my struggle, and I don't wanna think about it because I wanna focus on what I'm going through spiritually and emotionally. And it was sometimes I didn't know what to think. Sometimes there were thoughts like, yeah, I know something about what are these thoughts about in the book, and I was pretty angry because I didn't know what I should do with them after the Extreme the Way of Cross, and I thought about doing the right way and confronting the things that I thought about. But now that I'm after all of it and the emotions are settled, I think it was just some emotions that came through me. And I did see a lot of people getting pretty emotional. And I think that's also I think that's just beautiful that something like that makes people feel so much. Uh, It was my first Extreme the Way of Cross, and I didn't know what I should take with me. I'm a scout, so I thought, yeah, I should bring my uniform, and I will go to the mass, because there was like first mass, and then there was the second mass in the Wąwolnica. Unfortunately, we didn't go, and I was pretty disappointed. But I did bring my uniform. I did bring some food, but as I said before, even if I was hungry, I didn't want to eat, because I just don't know. Sometimes I was like, man, I'm so hungry. But then there was this awful feeling that came from my stomach that said, if you're gonna eat anything, you're gonna puke. And then I was, okay, no, I'm not gonna eat. So mostly I just drank water with electrolytes. Um, I think that some people might take caffeine. I'm not big of a fan of coffee or energy drinks, but my friend did gave me one, and it did burst inside of me, and I did. I had that little timeline when I had a lot of energy, and my friend said, "Yeah, I could tell that it did work on you," and I was like, "Yeah, that's why I don't drink it that much." Uh, but it did help, and I started to go faster than I did before, because at, I think, 2 a.m., the only things I could say was, I'm not gonna do it anymore. Why this backpack is so heavy? Why did I pack so much things? How much longer is it gonna take? And I was just yapping and talking nonsense. And then I get this burst of energy, and everything was just fine. So I think it's also the physical state that you're in that is very important. I started at 8 p.m. in the cathedral in Lublin with a mass, and I did 46.1 kilometers, I think. I mean, at least that's what the map said. And I ended in Wąwolnica. It took me from 8 p.m. to around 7 a.m. There was a lot of paths. There was mud. There were hills. There was a lot of ponds and mud that went all over everything. There were forests with sticks that, when you step on them, they went back at you and attacked you at 3 a.m. It's pretty scary. There were also cities, and when you saw a path that is made with concrete, you were like, "Oh my God, thank God, thank you God that my miserable, hurtful feeling, my miserable time is over, and I can go on a normal path." So when you saw some concrete, you were saved, definitely. There were a lot of people through the paths, through the journey. There were some women from their their local church, and they gave you sandwiches or a hot drink. One of them even have borscht, which is pretty nice. I did like it though. There were some people that just came out of their houses and gave you water or hot drinks, which does tell you how much empathy there is in some people, and how much humanity there is in them. And that when I just saw those kind of people, I thought, wow, I love how some people are just doing they can do anything, and does not expect anything back. And that was pretty beautiful for me. On each station, they were we at the beginning of the Extreme the Way of cross, uh, we were given little books with reflections on each station. And me and my friend thought that we are not gonna sit, because some people did sit, or they were staying on the stations and they were reading the reflections. But me and my friend decided that we're gonna just do a prayer at the station, and while going through one station to another, we are gonna read the reflections and just reflect from the time we ended the reading to the next station. Or we're gonna talk about it, because there were a lot of things to talk about, like one that was telling you that the future does depend on you, but you have to confirm it with God, and you have to believe that his plan is also good, and you have to believe in him. There was this one thing that told you about redeeming yourself if you did something bad. There was this prayer for your mother, which I think was beautiful. There was also this mm, theme about Mary, and how everything that everything that was in her life was unexpected, sometimes really hurtful, and everything and emotional. But she was such a graceful person, and everything that she experienced, she held it in her heart. And that's what we should do. We should be like Mary, and we should think with our heart and give everything to God, and not like talk over it with people. Just stay with it in your heart. And that's was also beautiful. That was also beautiful. The extreme the way of cross is a very revolutionary experience, and it does change your mindset. It does change your mindset if you really want it, because there were some people that just went with friends talking through all of the way of the cross, and there were some people that were thinking about the reflections. And if you really wanna think about it, you're gonna definitely change. And if you're thinking that it's not for you, why do you think that? You didn't try it. And it's for everything, not just the extreme the way of cross. If you didn't try it, why are you telling that you don't like it, or it's not gonna be it's not gonna be your cup of tea? You should try it. Just see it on yourself, because God has his own ways, and he only have them if you let him in. And I think that the extreme the way of cross is one of the ways that you can let God in your heart.
Hi, my name is Sandra Tsiba, or Mercy, and I'm a student at Vincent Paul. I'm currently in my second year doing physiotherapy. I'm a devoted Catholic, and I enjoy working in the church. I enjoy gathering with other Catholic family members, and right now we're at the Saturday missionary Saturday, yes. And we were discussing about the way of the cross and how it has impacted on our lives. And it's been a wonderful day. I hope you all come and join us in our Catholic family. Thank you. My experience with the way of the cross is quite phenomenal. I have experienced grace, love, and companionship through the way of the cross. I managed to get a personal encounter with God himself while I went for the way of the cross. One of the major events, or my major travels, or my major experiences, if I may say, is when I was in grade 7, 10 years back, and we had a pilgrimage. On that pilgrimage, we were doing the way of the cross. It was quite a long distance, I think more than 20 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken. And that's something like 10 years back. After we did the Way of the Cross, we managed to enter the Door of Mercy, which is opened once in 50 years in Zimbabwe. So with that, I had many things that I was praying for, but one of the things that I remember clearly was I was praying for my grade 7 results. After that experience, I went back to school and I wrote my exams and I passed. So with that encounter, it meant a lot to me. I went on to do another Way of the Cross later, a few years after that experience, when we went to Mutemwa, where John Bradburn used to work. There we also did the Way of the Cross, going up the Mutemwa mountain. And all I can say is, through the Way of the Cross, our prayers reach directly to heaven, because there isn't a day, or rather, if I may say, if God is in agreement with what I'm asking for, if it's for the praise and glory of His name, all that I pray for will happen. And because of that, I may not want to say God did this for me because I wanted 1, 2, 3, but He is always there for me. And with the rosary, with the help of the rosary, the Way of the Cross, our Bible, there are those things that help us to pray when we don't have words to go directly to God, when we don't have the correct tone or the correct way to structure our petitions. They help us to reach to God through those gifts that we have in the Catholic Church. So therefore, the Way of the Cross is something that I hold on to, and something that has a huge impact on my life. To where I am today is through prayer and petition, and I thank God because of that. Thank you very much.